everybody. Welcome into the Sportscaster and Her Son, where sports bridges the gap between the generations. I'm Peggy Kaczynski, your co-host for the Sportscaster and Her Son, and this is my son, Jason.
Hey guys, not my first time talking to you. We are actually entering year number 6.
I can't
year
believe
number
that.
7. Season 6, but year number 7 doing the podcast.
Right.
In 2024, which is super exciting. This is our first episode of 2025. God, still getting in the hang of that. And not so exciting times for the Bears. We're still waiting on a win. I don't know how many podcasts we've done in between their last win, but it feels like it's been forever. We're here on the eve of the last week of the season, and the Bears haven't won in months. Mom, your thoughts on that?
It's been very difficult. That I feel like a lot of people, we didn't see this coming. We knew that there was going to be some struggles, but no one really saw to the extent that it became this year. It's been a bit of a wasted season in many ways. There's a lot of question marks on has Caleb Williams developed, or has he gone backwards? Cole Kmet said last week, we're not playing NFL football. This has definitely, in a season that started on Hard Knocks, it ended up being a season of Hard Knocks. This was difficult, and it doesn't look like they are going to end the losing streak, which is in double digits now, and the second double-digit losing streak under general manager Ryan Poles, who will be in charge along with team president Kevin Warren in hiring a new head coach. So a busy offseason is coming up for the Bears. Disappointing end to the season as well. And to be honest with you, I just don't know what to think. I don't know whether to trust them. I don't know that they are going to get it right, because I really did trust Ryan Poles and I really liked the moves he was making, although we all put up the yellow flags about building this team from the outside in instead of from the inside out, starting in the trenches. We all raised those yellow flags, but did we like the skill position players that he was surrounding Caleb Williams with? Yes. Did we like the pick of Caleb Williams? Yes. But boy, did it go bad. And it made you wonder about his ability to evaluate not only talent in the trenches, but also talent as your coach.
I think, first off, I don't necessarily agree with the point that I like all the skill players that they've drafted. I think that they wasted a 4th rounder on Tyler Scott last year, 2 years ago, when you can easily hit on a wide receiver in the 4th round. They wasted a 3rd round pick, 2nd round pick, actually, basically on Velus Jones the year earlier. The thing that drives me the craziest about Ryan Poles is that he literally played offensive line at Boston College in NFL training camps, and he cannot draft an offensive lineman other than when it's Darnell Wright handed to him. And even then, you can still argue that he wasn't the correct pick. I mean, imagine if they had Jalen Carter at defensive line right now. I'd prefer that over Darnell Wright personally. So Ryan Poles, can he draft? Maybe. The Torrey Taylor pick is one that stares me in the face. Drafting a punter in the 4th round with
it's
this
an arrogant
holes,
pick.
That's an arrogant pick.
Yep.
It's a lazy pick too, because they're always impartial to their Big Ten, Midwest guys. Like the same thing with the Amagaji pick. Like we saw him play against Minnesota, and he didn't even look like a Division I college football player, more or less an NFL player. And so the drafting is something that really needs to change. I want to know where you fall on the debate between offensive mastermind and leader of men. I will say, first off, I am more on the side of leader of men. They have done this offensive mastermind thing before with Matt Nagy. They've done this hot assistant coach, even though now we know that Flus would have been fired had they not hired him. They've done this hot assistant coach thing before, most recently with Matt Eberflus. It hasn't worked. I want someone with head coaching experience, even if they've been fired before. Where do you fall on that side of the debate?
I want a leader that is and I know we used to make fun of we'd call them meathead Bears fans who just wanted the Mike Ditka type coach back. But I think that the McCaskies and ownership need to bite the bullet a little bit on this. And I think that they can't be afraid of a big personality in the room, because this is the National Football League. And you have guys like Brian Flores, who is suing the NFL for racial discrimination, who could be a fantastic fit as a head coach. I don't know who he's bringing as an offensive coordinator, but he could be a fantastic fit. And not to mention, we've heard that he has corrected his ways and learned from his ways when he was the head coach in Miami and how he handled Tua Tagovailoa. So I don't know. That brings you a lot of question marks. But on the other hand, do you not shy away from don't shy away from Ben Johnson just because he's the hot coordinator name right now? It's a tough call, to be honest with you. I don't know if I had to. I'll be honest with you. If Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren are truly working in tandem on this, I would not doubt that they both have a history, not only Kevin Warren in Minnesota, but Ryan Poles with Brian Flores. I could totally see them doing a Brian Flores, which would be more like a Mike Ditka type of hire. Everyone says Mike Vrabel is that guy, but he wasn't successful in the NFL, and I think that's the thing people are forgetting. He's a great. He sells himself really well, and he's good behind the microphone. But I think that when you see what is being done on the field, you go with two of the hottest coordinators right now. And I think you can't go wrong. You have Ben Johnson, you have Brian Flores, you have Joe Brady in Buffalo as well. I think that there's some really, really good names out there.
I agree with that. I like your mentality on the whole Brian Flores stuff. I do think the big question mark is who he would bring in as his offensive coordinator. But hey, luckily we have somebody in our Rolodex of the sportscaster and her son guests, former Bears offensive coordinator. He's made it work with a first-round pick. He's made it work with a quarterback who the franchise has invested so much into. Why don't we bring in former Bears offensive coordinator Ron Turner to talk about the Bears offense and their upcoming coaching?
Hi, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, Peggy. How you guys doing? Good to be back with you.
Yeah, we're joking that we had you on a couple of years ago, and we were talking about the problems with the quarterback position with the Bears. And lo and behold, I think we're still having the same problems. My goodness. I don't know how much you're watching what's been going on in Chicago and Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall draft pick, but your thoughts on Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, what you've seen from afar.
Well, I haven't. I have to be honest to start with. I haven't watched, all the games. I've seen. I watched the last one, the offensive showing against Seattle, the 6-3 game.
Ugh.
I watched that, and I watched bits and pieces of other games, and I think Caleb Williams is very, very good. It's just everything hasn't fit, with the change of the offensive coordinator and just everything and the struggles with the offensive line. But at the start of the year, when I saw the moves they made with drafting a number 1 draft pick for a receiver, getting DJ Moore, who was here. I'm in the Charlotte area, so he was here in Carolina. I'm familiar with him. I know he's a great player, and they got great tight end. I mean, really good running backs. I'm very impressed with the running backs, and obviously the offensive line has struggled. But I'm surprised. I made the comment before the season. I said, well, I think some of those offensive records that we had put up in '95, that I think some of them are still there. I said, I think they're going to be broken this year, but obviously wasn't the case. Maybe next year. But, I think he's really good, and they get some stability there and zero in on what they want to do. And he has an off season to prepare for it all. I think he's going to be really good.
They ended up doing something they had never done before, and that was firing the offensive coordinator during the season, Shane Waldron, who came over from Seattle. It seemed, Ron, like they had a very clear plan for Caleb Williams, and it was very detailed on how they were going to develop him. And yet somehow, some way, it went wrong. And he still struggles in recognizing defenses. He struggles in getting rid of the ball, his decision making, maybe too many progressions that they were giving him. I'm curious if you've been able to take a look and see, why these things happen with rookie quarterbacks, and maybe in particular Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think that it's a process that you have to do to bring them along. I don't want to say slowly, but you kind of do. And what I always did, and whether I had a rookie quarterback or anything else, but if you do have a rookie quarterback and and a rookie receiver and some young people. What I tried to do when I installed stuff in training camp, I installed the first 3 to 5 days, 80 to 90% of the offense was in. And I looked at our 3 opponents, the first 3 opponents that we were going to play for the season. We did a game plan on all of them. And then I did the install after we did game plan for the first 3 opponents. So when I installed for training camp, I was installing things that we were going to run as a core part of our offense the first 3 weeks. So we started practicing those things day 1 in practice of training camp, and we're working those over and over. Now we would change formations and do some different things, but the plays were the same, and the concepts were the same, and the reads were the same that he got from day 1. So when we got into the first game, there really wasn't anything or very little new. There might be a wrinkle here and there, but the 80-90% of the offense he'd been working on since day 1 of training camp. And so you start zeroing in on the game plan, working against what you're going to see from your first opponent, and you're working on that. But during training camp, you're working against your defense on the same exact plays, same concepts, protection schemes, everything. So you're getting a lot of work there. Now you zero in on your team. So he's seen just about everything he can see for those plays, and he knows what they're going to be. He knows what you're going to run. And so there has to be some kind of comfort level, not just with the quarterback, but with the offensive line. I think that's critical too. And especially the Bears struggle, I know, offensive line wise, and that helps them as well. They know what you're going to run. They know what to expect. They're not surprised by the calls. It helps the young receivers and everyone. And I'm not saying they didn't do that because I don't know, but I'm just saying that's what I did to try to bring some familiarity for the quarterback and a comfort zone, for the quarterback and for the entire offense. And, you go out in the first game and it's not like he's a rookie because he's seen and he knows exactly what's coming. And I also scripted the first 15 plays.
Yep.
And I thought that was critical. So he and the team knew. And a lot, especially the first game, I would have those scripted 2 weeks before the game. And the week of the game, we practice those plays every day or for our Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice, and then walk through them again on Saturday, the plays that we're going to call. And, they knew what was coming. The whole team knew what was coming. We'd go over them the night before the game, the same thing. So I think that helps too. And those are just things that I tried to do to help any quarterback, but especially a young quarterback.
Are wins a quarterback stat? You had a rookie quarterback in 2005 and Kyle Orton and made the Super Bowl. I love Kyle Orton as much as the next guy, but he wasn't nearly as talented as Caleb Williams is. And Caleb Williams' Bears have been really struggling. I know that the rosters and the coaching is a lot different than it was in 2005, but how much of that is on Caleb, the Bears' current record?
Well, I think it's, obviously there you look at what's going on, and again, you try to tailor to what they can do and their comfort zone, and then the quarterback's got to go out and play. So, part of it, and I don't know, Shane, the previous Waldron, is that his name? Previous offensive coordinator, I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't really know much about his background, a little bit, but not much. But I'm sure he's a very qualified coach, and I'm sure he did the same things that we're doing. So then it's on the quarterback to go out and play in a comfort zone. And the biggest thing you got to teach a young quarterback, especially someone as talented as Caleb, is don't try to do too much, especially early, but really anytime. Don't try to do too much. Just run the offense, run the system. And I know that's his nature. Watching him in college, he's a guy that likes to create things and run around and make plays that, are off rhythm and do that. So you got to try to, you don't want to take that away from him, but you have to, tone it down a little bit, I think, especially early until he gets really comfortable. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but.
No, it did. It did. And I just wonder, keeping his confidence up, we see him on the sideline. We see the frustration. We hear the frustration every week in the media with a rookie quarterback. Like, how do you get him to calm down and stay confident and stay true to what got him to this point?
Yeah, that can be tough, and obviously it depends on the quarterback's personality, who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with. And I know he has a lot of confidence in himself. It just seems like from the outside. And, sometimes that's great. Obviously you want that. Sometimes that can be a detriment because you expect that kind of success he had in college. all the time, and it's not going to happen in the NFL. It's not going to happen. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have adversity. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to go 3 straight series and not score. So you just try to talk to them and just keep running your base things and talk to them about what you're going to do, and just try to find whatever the key points are, the buzzwords for that individual that's going to help him just kind of relax a little bit and just go out and play. Again, I don't know Caleb, so I don't know what that is, but everybody's different. And I do see that he is pretty emotional on the sidelines and, coming off and all that. So again, I think some of that comes with maturity as well.
You're still pretty closely aligned with the NFL, with your son Cam coaching quarterbacks in Indianapolis and having his hands full with another rookie in Anthony Richardson. There's a lot of rookies, quarterbacks this year in the NFL, and you could see the ups and downs. They don't have the luxury of playing behind a veteran. Did you find it important that if they didn't play behind a veteran, that there was at least a veteran in the quarterback's room?
Yeah, I think that's critical. And I know with, my son Cameron and at Indy, they always, they tried to have that. They had Minshew the year before, Flacco this year, so they're trying to do that. Yeah, I think that's important because, a coach is going to get up and talk and go over everything, but to have somebody playing the position in the huddle and all that's with you, that's gone through it and has experience, I think can be extremely valuable as long as it's the right person and their personalities, click. There's not, sometimes there can be a little conflict in there. Yep. Personality wise, as long as their personalities fit and it's a guy that's willing to do that. I think that can be extremely helpful.
Ron, explain to me how the cadence works, especially in today's NFL, when you may have a play call that's 30 words long. And one of the issues that Caleb Williams was having earlier on, before the changeover with offensive coordinators, was the clock in his head with the play clock and the cadence was not in sync, and he was not aware of how much time he had to get the play out. And they were getting delay of game penalties and having to burn timeouts. How have you seen this in the NFL with the cadence, with the play calling, and how you adapt that to a young quarterback?
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the NFL, and I did it myself when I was still coaching, cut way down on the verbiage because when I was with some offenses that I learned from and some that I ran early, like you said, that was so long, and that's tough. That's really tough on a young quarterback to get all that down and feel confident. Now, I know they have the wristbands and they're reading it and everything, but you want them to feel comfortable doing it. So I just went to a lot of code words that would mean one word would mean one thing to everybody. And what I found too, when you got into a hurry up offense, if you wanted to go no huddle at any point in a hurry up or a 2-minute, whatever, it really helped them because you're using the same words. And just as a way to cut down on the verbiage, because some of them are ridiculous. You look at the play sheets, you say, does it really have to be that long? No, it doesn't. But especially if you get a team that's doing a lot of motion, shifting and things like that, it can get wordy. And I know a lot of the guys out there, and I've talked to some coaches that, they have just a very few buzzwords and code words and that's been very, very effective.
What do the Bears need to surround Caleb with next year that he hasn't had this year? Going into the year, like everyone was talking about how great the wide receiver core was and the O-line was improved. Where do you think the Bears need to start building this thing up around him once the season ends?
I think the biggest thing is what I said earlier, stability, and get him in an entire offseason. Not one where he's drafted and he comes in, he's got a lot of stuff going on. Get him in the off season with the OTAs and the mini camps and get in there for extra work and extra time and establish a great relationship for whomever the new coordinator is going to be and lay down that philosophy and talk to him about it and find out what kinds of things he's comfortable with. I think that's critical. I would always try to do that with quarterbacks, especially young ones. The night before game, I may really, really like something, but if they don't and they're not comfortable with it, I'm not going to call it. It doesn't do any good. So, just have a lot of conversations with the quarterback coach, with the coordinator, so they have a good feeling of what he's extremely comfortable with. But I think that's where it all starts. And then, consistency and whoever comes in, just don't try to do too much. Don't, you got to do enough. You don't want it to be too simple, but don't try to do too much, and give him a chance. The whole thing is confidence, where he can just get in the huddle, call the play, get up there and play like he did in college, where he was extremely confident and did what I said earlier, ran around, made some plays, but did it within the system, or do it within the system.
What is the best note, in your opinion, that this season can end on for Caleb on Sunday?
What is what? I'm sorry?
What is the best note that you think the season can end on for Caleb on Sunday, other than a win? A win would be a blessing for everyone.
Yeah.
But what's the best note, maybe from a performance standpoint, from an eye test standpoint, that you think would be the best lead into the offseason for him?
It's hard for me to say because I haven't really studied the Bears. I haven't seen all the games and everything. So it'd be really hard for me to say that. Again, I just think it goes back to what I said earlier. Just he's probably going crazy trying to find out who's going to be my head coach and who's going to be my coordinator, and what are we going to run and all that. I think that's just the biggest thing.
All right. Speaking of that,
let's solidify the offensive line.
Well, it's funny, Ron. This week, Caleb said that he felt that the criticism of his offensive line, which has given up a NFL leading 67 sacks this season, and the record is like 72, so they could easily. You say easily because 6 sacks in a game has happened multiple times this year for the Bears. They could easily tie the NFL record. But he said that it's not all on the offensive line, that it's his decision-making, not getting rid of the ball, dirting the ball earlier, just throwing the ball away, that he needs to be better with his decision-making. So,
yeah, I saw those comments. I read that, and I was glad to hear that. Because he's right. It's not all the offensive line. It never is. It's the receivers. It's the quarterback. It's the running backs. It's the overall protection. It might be the schemes. It's a little bit of everything. And it's, people always point to the offensive line, and they do have to get better. I have seen enough. I know, they do have to get better, but it's never just the offensive line. And he's exactly right on that. And that's, I was happy to hear him say that, instead of throw them under the bus and say, hey, I got to get better protection of this. I was happy to hear it. That shows a little bit of maturity maybe coming. I know early in the year, I think he made a comment. Maybe I didn't hear this correctly, but I think he made a comment, something like, hey, I let us down to score. I can't play defense too. And I'm not sure if I heard that correctly or if someone told me that, but I thought I heard that. And I'm like, wow, so to hear him say that, whether he said that or not, to hear him say that a lot of it was on him, I was happy to hear that.
I don't remember him saying that, Ron, but I do remember Keenan Allen saying in the Thanksgiving Day game, the before Black Friday for Matt Eberflus, Keenan Allen saying that the players did enough to win the game. And that was a big ouch. That was kind of a shocking comment, probably the most shocking that we had heard this year, that led really to Matt Eberflus being fired the next day.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about what we saw from Matt Eberflus this year. He's not the only one that struggled with clock management and game management in NFL games. We have seen Antonio Pierce. We saw other young head coaches having the same issue. What is going on with the clock management with these coaches?
Yeah, before I get to that, I just wanted to say that I didn't want to attribute Caleb saying that if he didn't say it. I probably could have just heard that from somebody else. So I didn't want anyone to think that I was just saying that. Yeah, but clock management, I've been shocked at how bad it's been this year in the NFL and college. But I've just been shocked at how bad it is. And because game after game, you hear about it. Well, I should have called a timeout. I shouldn't have called a timeout. All the things. I know the Bears had that in one of the games, at least one of the games, and several teams have. And it's kind of crazy to me because you prepare for that stuff. It's not like on game day, all of a sudden you look at the clock and say, oh, wow, there's a minute 40. We got 2 times. What do I do? You discuss that stuff. You talk about it in training camp, at least anywhere I've ever been, we did as an assistant and as a head coach. You have it, a plan for it. So you talk about, all right, we got 3 timeouts and there's 2 minutes to go. When are we going to use our first one? All right, whatever the head coach's philosophy is, we'll use our first one at the 1:30 mark or 1:25 mark. We'll use our second one with 40 seconds to go, so we save it, or whatever it might be that they want to do. But you discuss all that stuff previously, and then all the different scenarios that might come up. You got 45 seconds or 35 seconds, the clock's running, and you hit a 25-yard pass. It takes time for the linemen to get up there. That might be a time to take a timeout instead of hurrying up there, trying to get lined up and get the clock. Someone did that the other day, I'm not sure, and it took like 25 or 28 seconds before they did it. But those are things you discussed previously, and you go over them with the staff, you go over them with the quarterback, and most importantly, you have somebody in the press box that has everything down, a chart, everything down that you've talked about, and you reminds the head coach, hey, we said we want to take a timeout here. Now, the head coach could always change the mindset. I like the flow of the game. I don't want to. Let's go. But you have somebody up there saying timeout, with 40 seconds left or whatever the case might be. You're getting into the 2-minute warning. You get a timeout there. So there might be 2:20 left, 2:25 left, and you got all 3 timeouts. Are you going to use one before the 2-minute warning? You run a play, or you're going to take a timeout so you can get at least one more, maybe 2 more plays before the 2-minute warning? Or are you going to let it go down to the 2-minute warning so you keep all 3? Again, philosophically, that's up to what the head coach wants to do, but you've discussed it all. So it's not on the quarterback at the time, or it's not on the head coach. And I've heard head coaches say it. Well, I saw that, and these are NFL head coaches, and they're saying, well, I thought maybe we could have run the play a little bit quicker. And come on, if it's a 25-yard pass like just happened last week, it's going to take some time to get up there, Yeah. Discuss that stuff beforehand and have a plan. I think, to me, that's the biggest thing, is the lack of preparation for that. And I would always be in a meeting the night before the game, and we went over every scenario and, had all that down. It's still hard. You're still going to make mistakes, but not as many because you're prepared.
So that should lead us to our questions about the next head coach of the Chicago Bears, Ron. Typically, outside of John Fox, they have hired first-time head coaches. You see a lot of those mistakes out of first-time head coaches, things like clock management. What do you think of the potential candidates in the NFL right now? Most notably, there's Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel. What are you thinking in terms of head coaching fits for the Chicago Bears?
I think you just have to get somebody. And to me, I hear all the talk about you got to get an offensive guy for Caleb Williams. I do not agree with that. I think you have to get the best leader. The guy that's going to be the most organized, is going to be a great motivator, can establish a relationship with everybody on the team. And there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of defensive guys that can do that, And I think you just have to get the guy that's going to do all those things. Be a CEO for the entire organization and still be able to focus on whatever his side of the ball is. And that's tough to do. And there are a lot of first-time head coaches that come out and have success. So it doesn't have to be somebody that has experience. I see guys that have experience. They were a head coach somewhere, and they didn't get it done, and all of a sudden they're rehired. And in most cases, it's the same old thing. And the bottom line is, I've learned this: if you have a great quarterback, you're going to be a great coach. If you don't, I don't care who you are. I mean, you look at some of the head coaches and what they did before they had a Tom Brady or a Joe Montana or some of those guys. You got to have that guy. And then once you do, you better have a plan, and again, it can be a defensive guy as long as he, can manage it and do everything the right way, and hire a great offensive coordinator and the right offensive coordinator and let him do it.
Who's the most important person to make this hire in your coaching experience? Who should have the most say? Should it be the GM? Should it be Kevin Warren? Should it be the ownership? Should it be the current players? Who has the biggest seat at the table here?
That's a tough one, because I think it depends on the organization. I think it depends on the people. There are some GMs who are great personnel evaluators and great. They were scouts and they're great at that, but maybe not, great at selecting the head coach, and the owners, I would say no to those guys. I would say no, but other people within the organization, it depends on who that person is. Normally, I would like to say the GM, and in most cases, I think that is the case, as long as he gets input from other people and they do their homework and they talk to other organizations where these people have been, whether they're assistants or head coaches. They do their homework and then make sure it's a good fit personality-wise with what you want to do. But, I mean, it could be a number of people. I've seen people successful when they have outside consultants help, which I'm not a big fan of, but I have seen that be successful. I think, to me, it's normally, I think, within the organization. And that person usually is the GM. I know it's not the owners.
Last question for you. Mom, do you have anything else?
I just wanted to add, go ahead, Jason. I'll ask something at the end here.
Okay, well, I wanted to finish on the Illini yesterday, finished off their best season since your 2001 team, the Rose Bowl team, 10 wins, just the 5th 10-win season in program history. I just wanted to ask, did you watch yesterday's game? And if so, what do you think about what Coach Bielema is building in Chambana?
Yeah, I did watch most of it. In fact, I was at a friend's house and we were watching it, and they were saying, well, we just heard that if he wins this game, that's 10 wins, and he'll tie you the last time it was done. So we don't want him to win. I said, actually, I do. I would like him to win. I like what he's done with the program. I'm glad they got to win. And I think he's a great coach and doing a tremendous job there. I talked to him, and, I like what he's doing. He's consistent. He's steady. He's got a plan, and he sticks with it. And that plan is working. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Josh Whitman, the AD, who I recruited and coached there, and for Brett, because I've gotten to know him and I like what he does. I like what he stands for, what he believes in. And I was happy that they got that win. But I am going to say it took them 13 games to get number 10. We only got 12. So that's just a little side note. But I'm extremely happy for him, and I love what he's doing.
Ron, I do want to ask you one last thing about the Bears. And when you say, you don't think ownership should be involved in the decision, I do have a question for you regarding ownership. Now, I've covered this team since 1992. And I feel like I know the McCaskies fairly well. Have you had 2 stints with the Bears from 93 to 96 and then 05 to 09. Did you find that there were some maybe written or unwritten rules about things like they didn't like swearing? I mean, this is a football team. There's a lot of stuff you hear in the locker room, right? I could tell you that I know for a fact now that when they have the music playing during practice, they have 2 sets of music, depending on if George or one of the McCaskies is at practice or not. They don't play the version that you might hear a lot of swearing in. This year with Hard Knocks, it came out that George made sure that the producers did not include any scenes where there was any swearing. And I think people are starting to get concerned that this is a football team. And that it's not always pretty. It can be gritty. It can be ugly, and you can hear some nastiness as well. Did you ever come across that there was kind of unwritten behavior that they did not want around the team?
No, not at all. And before I get into that, I do want to clarify what you said, that I said ownership should not be involved in the process. They should be involved in the process, but not have the final say.
Right.
But I do think they should be involved, obviously.
Fair enough.
But, with staying in communication with the GM or whoever's going to make that call, but not necessarily be the ones to make the final say on it. Just have some input. But no, I never had anything like that with the Bears. I'm trying to think back to some of the guys we had as coaches and players. And if you took away swearing, there weren't a lot. I'm not sure how many players or coaches we would have had left. So maybe none, but I don't think that's realistic. That's not going to happen. I understand the point they're making, and it's when you're doing things and everything else. I mean, if you're on the airplane traveling and you're talking that way, that's not appropriate,
right?
And that shouldn't be done. I don't care where you are, because that's not appropriate. There's locker room talk and football field talk, and then public talk.
Right.
They're totally different. I mean, I talk completely different when I'm with the team and I'm in the locker room and I'm on the field than I do at home. My daughters have been to, when they were young, went to some of the Illinois practices, and they're like, oh my God. And Wendy would tell them, then I would tell them, hey, listen, sometimes that's the best way to communicate to people. And it just emotionally, it just comes out. Have you ever heard me say that at home? Have you ever heard me say it talking to you? No. Have you heard me say it talking to anybody else outside? No. And you never will. So, you understand the difference. But you get in that locker room, you get on that field, it's just the way of life for whatever reason.
See, Ron, Jason can attest to this. I have the opposite problem. They hear words from me at home that I would never use at work.
Yeah, I think you might be in trouble if you use them at work although nowadays it seems like almost anything goes.
You're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this holiday week, taking the time out to join us. It's so great to catch up with you and get your thoughts on football, and to see you and to follow Cameron at Indianapolis, and your other son is coaching. Morgan is coaching is he at Arkansas?
He's at Arkansas, yeah, and they had a nice bowl win, so that was good to see. That was fun. So yeah, they're both coaching. So I get my fix there and talking to them about it and going to their practices sometimes. And I also coach the bowl, so I get 1 week of football, and that's enough.
I love it. Ron, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So, Ron Turner has worked with Kyle Orton, Eric Kramer, Rex Grossman at the Super Bowl. His backup, I said Kyle Orton, Jay Cutler. He actually worked with Jay Cutler as well. Helped Jay Cutler cut down on the interceptions, which Jay Cutler threw a lot of. And a lot of that came from the development of his rookie running back, Matt Forte, at the time. So I think it's interesting. One thing we didn't get to talk to Ron Turner about was the importance of a good running game, because, Jason, one of the things we saw this year in the NFL, right when this was a passing league, the running backs took front and center this year. There were some great run games this year in the NFL. And I think that that's going to continue to be a focus in developing these young quarterbacks, is you have to have a good run game.
And this is such a great running back draft, Mom. I mean, there are so many big names. The Bears won't get their hands on Ashton Genty, but if they can draft a game-changing back, I've said it for the past couple of weeks to you and to some of my friends and just online, this is such a great running back draft. If they can find someone on day 2, strike gold, it can really change the entire offense, because you look what the Lions have right now with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs was just named to the Pro Bowl. 2 fantastic running backs. Even if they had just one of those guys, they'd be able to conduct a lot of the offense through them. And you see the 3 Pro Bowl running backs in the NFC are on 3 playoff teams right now. So it's not a coincidence. The Bears need to establish a running game, and the other part of that is the offensive line, which I have been very open about not thinking they've done a good job of building. And so Those are the 2 keys this offseason on top of the head coach search. That's the most important thing. But we're almost there. We're almost there. One more game, and then finally the head coaching search will begin.
Yep. Speaking of, let's ring in 2025 with some predictions.
2025 got off to a great start for me. I can't even lie. My Texas Longhorns won yesterday in the Peach Bowl. They're the first team in college football history to win all 6 New Year's 6 bowl games. I think they're going to beat Ohio State. That's my first prediction. They're 6-point underdogs. People saw what Ohio State did in the Rose Bowl, and they're all over them. They're the odds-on favorite to win the national championship now. Not so fast, in the great words of Lee Corso. It's going to be a lot of Texas fans in Dallas. Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback, is a transfer from K-State. He's 0-for-3 in his career against Texas. I don't think he picks up his first win in his final college start. Give me the Longhorns punching their final ticket to Atlanta next week.
All right, Texas just needs to be a little bit more disciplined late in the game. That was awful to watch against Arizona State. Okay, go ahead. Number 2.
I think the Bulls are going to do something ridiculously stupid from a strategy standpoint, but from a fan standpoint, I would really love this. They got linked to Zion Williamson this past week as a trade target, and that just feels like the most Jerry Reinsdorf move of all time, buying low on a guy who would put fans in the seats. Not that the Bulls need it. A fantastic dunker who doesn't have a long track record of winning, but has a really high ceiling and a whole lot of potential. I can just totally see the Bulls doing this, trading draft picks, going all in on the next couple of years of being mediocre, because it means at least 4 playoff home games, playoff revenue, playoff TV money. And that's all that Jerry really cares about. I mean, he's been open about that. So when I saw the Bulls were linked to Zion yesterday, a light bulb went off in my head. And I've just got a feeling that this would be the most Jerry Reinsdorf Bulls thing ever. Maybe his last hurrah as Bulls owner.
Boy, and Zion Williamson, the kid just can't stay healthy. It's been so disappointing.
He's going to be at Lou Malnati's every week. Lou Malnati's and Portillo's and Al's Beef and all the great Michelin star restaurants in Chicago.
Right.
I mean, we thought New Orleans was bad for his diet. Come to Chicago, it's going to be even worse.
All right, number 3.
Oh, I know you're having a hard time holding back your laughter on that. I've got a prediction. I want to start off with this prediction in 2025. I have been in on women's basketball for the last couple of years. I interned for the Chicago Sky in high school back when the WNBA was still, honestly, it was a laughingstock at that point. People laughed at the league. People joked about it. Oh, would you rather have $5 or your local WNBA team win the championship? Ha, very funny. I think that this year we're going to get 2 more WNBA expansion teams, which is huge for that league, because the big discussion with the WNBA has been that there aren't enough teams to field the level of talent in women's basketball. And I think that the money is finally going to be there. The demand is finally going to be there. I think that Austin is going to get a team, and I don't know who that second market will be. I think that Nashville's a really hot option for expansion teams right now in sports. I think Charlotte could be a really good place because it's right in the heart of the ACC, close enough to South Carolina, where women's basketball has succeeded for so long. I think the WNBA picks up 2 more expansion teams this year, and I think that it does its best numbers of viewership, of revenue, and of overall traffic this year. I know that last year might have been the year of women's basketball. Nope, I think it's going to keep going this year. Full speed ahead for women's hoops.
I love it. It's been a fun year, Jason. I appreciate it. And it's been great seeing you blossom as a burgeoning news and sports reporter in Kansas. So good luck to you in 2025.
Thanks.
I want to thank our producer, Jack McGrath, for always taking the time at ESPN Chicago to help us out and posting our episodes on the ESPN Chicago app. That's where you can find the audio version as well. Don't forget, you can continue to check out the video version on our YouTube page. We also have a web page, The Sportscaster and Her Son, a Facebook page. You can follow both of us on X. And Jason?
If you like what you see, go get us wherever you get your audio. Like, rate, subscribe. It boosts the algorithm. It helps us out. Follow us on Twitter and on social media. While you're at it, we also have a Twitter account for our podcast, TSAHS Pod, on Twitter, formerly Twitter, now known as X. I refuse to call it that because I hate Elon Musk. I am so excited for the next year of this podcast, Mom. We've got some exciting things in store. Hopefully, this will be the first year of the Sportscaster and Her Son where the Chicago Bears finish above 500. It hasn't happened yet.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
It hasn't happened yet. We're entering year 7 of this show. The last time the Bears finished above 500 was the year before we started this show. So that's what I'm hoping for in 2025.
Our thanks to Ron Turner as well for joining us. It's always great to catch up with the old Bears offensive coordinator and Illini head coach. Coaching ties everywhere from San Jose State to Florida International to Stanford Cardinal. It's great to catch up with Ron. Thank him as well for joining us. And thank you all for sticking around with us in 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. Make 2025 a great one. Thank you for joining us. So long.